In October 2025, Amazon announced the largest round of layoffs in its history. 14,000 corporate roles gone. The same week, Amazon reported record revenues. The same quarter, Amazon committed to spending hundreds of billions of dollars building AI infrastructure. A company cutting 14,000 jobs while posting record profits and announcing the largest capital investment in its history? That sentence should stop you. Because what it describes is not a company in trouble. It describes a company that found something it needs to fund. And it needed a very large amount of money very quickly. The question is where that money came from. Since 2023, the official narrative around tech layoffs has been remarkably consistent. Companies are cutting jobs because AI is replacing those workers. The technology has arrived. Roles are becoming redundant. This is the future happening in real time. It's a clean story. It maps neatly onto what people already fear. And it is, at best, a half-truth, and at worst, a deliberate misdirection. By mid-2026, more than 142,000 tech workers had lost their jobs in the year alone, across 434 separate layoff events. That is 627 people per day. In 2025, U.S. companies cited AI in around 54,000 planned layoffs. That sounds significant, but it represents about 4.5% of all job cuts that year. The rest, the overwhelming majority, were attributed to restructuring, market conditions, and overcorrection from pandemic-era overhiring. And even where AI was cited, the question nobody was asking out loud is, cited how? As the reason the job no longer exists, or as the reason the company needs the money? Let's look at the companies doing the cutting, and what they were doing with the money at the same time. Microsoft. In May 2025, 6,000 employees were let go. In July, another 9,000, about 4% of its global workforce across 2 rounds. At the same time, Microsoft committed $80 billion in AI infrastructure spending for the year. Its CEO publicly stated that AI now writes 20 to 30% of Microsoft's code. IBM, 8,000 jobs cut, primarily in HR. The roles were replaced by an internal AI system called Ask HR. This one is genuinely AI doing a job. IBM was also simultaneously hiring software engineers and data analysts. Meta, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft together, the 4 largest cloud and AI hyperscalers, committed to a combined $700 billion in capital expenditure for 2026. That is nearly double what they spent in 2025. $700 billion. That money has to come from somewhere. The venture capitalist Mark Andreessen described it directly. He said the massive hiring surge during the pandemic created companies that were fundamentally overstaffed, and that AI arrived as what he called the silver bullet excuse. You want to cut headcount for multiple reasons? You've been planning to for a while? And suddenly, you have a narrative that sounds like innovation instead of cost reduction. That framing matters because it separates 2 completely different phenomena that are being reported as one. The first is genuine automation. IBM replacing HR functions with Ask HR is real. The second is capital reallocation dressed as progress. Layoffs at profitable companies announced in the same earnings call as record AI investment. The first is inevitable. The second is a choice. Not every layoff works this way, but the broader pattern, record revenues, record investment, and mass redundancies in the same breath, tells a different story than the press release does. Here is the core mechanism, and it matters to understand it precisely. Large corporations operate under continuous pressure from equity markets to demonstrate efficiency, specifically to show that revenue is growing faster than costs. When a company announces that it is investing heavily in AI, the market rewards that narrative. When it also announces workforce reductions in the same breath, the market reads it as operational discipline. Costs are coming down. Investment is going up. The stock tends to respond well. This is what analysts at Challenger, Gray, and Christmas called it in early 2026. Companies are shifting budgets toward AI investments at the expense of jobs. The same firm found that in 2026, AI was cited as a factor in around 27,600 job cuts, about 13% of all job cut plans that year. That's up from around 5% in 2025. But here is the critical distinction. Cited as a factor in cuts is not the same as AI doing the work. Challenger's own reporting notes that it remains unclear whether AI-linked job cuts reflect actual AI replacing workers or companies reallocating capital to fund AI development. The Harvard Business Review put it most directly in January 2026. The headline read, "Companies are laying off workers because of AI's potential, not its performance." Potential, not performance. That distinction is the entire argument. An AI system that might be able to do your job in 3 years has no operational justification for replacing you today. But it does create a powerful narrative justification. The company tells the market it is transforming. The market rewards the story. The worker loses the job. Not because the machine can do it, but because someone decided the budget was better spent on the infrastructure that might, eventually, make that possible. The job losses are not the consequence of the AI revolution. They are its seed funding. And the distinction between those two things, consequence versus funding mechanism, is the difference between a force of nature and a boardroom decision. There's a case study that makes this clearer than any chart. Klarna, the Swedish payments company. In 2022, Klarna had around 5,000 employees. By late 2025, it had roughly 3,000. The headcount dropped by 40%, almost entirely through attrition, not formal layoffs. The CEO was explicit about why. AI was doing the work. Specifically, Klarna deployed an AI chatbot that handled 2/3 of all customer service interactions. It replaced the work of approximately 700 full-time agents. Revenue per employee tripled. The company went public. Then something happened that didn't make the same headlines. Service quality dropped. The AI chatbot, efficient as it was at volume, struggled with the nuanced, emotionally complex interactions that human agents handle naturally. By June 2025, Klarna had started quietly rehiring human customer service staff. The CEO acknowledged it directly. What you end up having is lower quality. Klarna is the closest thing we have to a real-world test of AI fully replacing a workforce. And the result was, it worked until it didn't. The AI handled the easy cases. The hard ones needed people. Meanwhile, at Citigroup, the CFO told investors they expected headcount to fall by around 20,000 by 2026, as AI-enabled systems allowed them to run with fewer staff. That announcement came before those AI systems were fully deployed, before the results were in. The people were cut based on what the technology is expected to do, not what it has already done. But there is one more piece of data in all of this. One finding that makes the official story almost impossible to maintain. It came from a survey of the executives running these decisions. In late 2025, Gartner surveyed business executives at large enterprises about their AI investments and their workforce decisions. The finding was this: enterprises reporting significant ROI from AI had laid off workers at almost exactly the same rate as enterprises reporting modest ROI, or negative ROI, from AI. Helen Poitevin, digital workplace analyst at Gartner, described the result directly. There seems to be no link between laying people off and getting ROI from AI investments. Read that again. The companies cutting the most jobs are not the ones getting the best returns from AI. The companies getting the best returns from AI are not the ones cutting the most jobs. The two things, layoffs and AI performance, are not correlated. What is actually driving ROI from AI, the Gartner data found, is reinvestment in the workforce. Companies that used AI to amplify what their employees could do, rather than to replace them, were generating the returns. The ones eliminating headcount were, in most cases, eliminating it for reasons that had nothing to do with AI working. Poitouvin's advice to executives was direct. Do not use AI as an excuse, especially if you want to get AI value. The people being laid off right now are not casualties of AI that works. They are the budget for AI that hasn't proved itself yet. The regulatory response has been almost non-existent. In California, a bill called the Worker Technological Displacement Act, Senate Bill 951, would have required companies to give 90 days advance notice before AI-driven layoffs, and to specifically disclose which AI systems were involved. It has not passed. California's governor separately signed an executive order directing state agencies to study the displacement and develop policy recommendations. Studying it, Stanford's Human-Centered AI Institute found that software developer employment for workers under 26 fell by nearly 20% between 2024 and 2026. That is the sharpest occupational contraction for a single age cohort in the technology sector since reliable data has been collected. The implication is significant. The first cohort of workers to grow up with AI as a workplace tool is also the first cohort experiencing measurable displacement before they've established careers. That is not a coincidence. It is the entry-level positions, the training wheel roles, the jobs that build toward careers that AI replaces first. And here is the structural paradox that nobody in a position of power has been willing to address directly. These companies are not cutting jobs because they cannot afford their workers. Amazon cut 14,000 roles, the same quarter it reported revenues of over $200 billion. These are profitable organizations making a deliberate choice about where to deploy capital. It is a choice. It is just not being described as one. At some point, probably sooner than the optimists believe and later than the pessimists claim, AI will genuinely be able to do a significant portion of what most white-collar workers currently do. That part of the story is real. But that is not what is happening right now. What is happening right now is a capital reallocation event dressed up as a technological inevitability. Workers are being cut not because the machine can do their job, but because someone decided that their salary was more valuable as infrastructure spend. The Gartner finding is worth carrying with you. The companies getting the best results from AI are not the ones cutting the most jobs. They are the ones using AI to make their people better. That distinction is not academic. It matters to what comes next, both for the workers inside these organizations and for the organizations themselves. Klarna found out what happens when you cut too fast and assume the technology will catch up. The service degraded. The humans came back. The next video looks at where the money you earn actually goes before it reaches you, and the gap is bigger than you think.